Hi, have you found that you set goals for yourself or that people in your team or even family members set goals and then nothing happens? It is so demoralizing. You might be a coach working with a coachee, you might be a head of department, and your staff set their annual performance targets, and after your first performance review, you realize no progress has been made. Well, often it's not the person, even though we like to blame ourselves or blame the person for not making progress. The mistake often lies in the fact that the target is not achievable or realistic, or the time parameter set for it was just not logical or achievable. So it means that the target wasn't smart. And in this session, we will look a little bit at something that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, but don't necessarily apply in your everyday work. And I can assure you, from all the work we've done across all these different projects, smart targets are essential for success. Now, in this session, we'll just revisit what those 5 key elements of a smart target really means. We will also work on with some templates and go through each of these elements so that you can set your own smart target and can teach others, and most importantly, apply this and monitor this and embed this in your own work and that of your organization. So when we look at a smart target, before we get to just a smart target, setting goals, it's a really important part of being a successful person. And you could have short-term goals and long-term goals. It could be your daily list of things that you wish to achieve, but the more you can refine those goals, the better. Now, one of my favorite authors, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, he wrote The Little Prince, and it's one of my favorite books ever. And I've actually embedded The Little Prince in this presentation for you. There's a PDF, so if you haven't yet read it, I really can't encourage you even more. I mean, it's one of the books that you just simply have to read in your lifetime. So if you are a member of our professional learning community, then you can request a copy of these slides and I will send it to you, and you can then read The Little Prince if you have not done it, or maybe you've read it years ago and it's really worth revisiting. Now, a SMART target is, as you all know, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And let us look at each of those separate elements. Now, before you start with your goal, what you want to achieve, there are just some questions, simple questions that you can ask yourself. What exactly is it what you want to achieve? And the more specific you can become, the better is the chance that you will achieve it. So if you say, I want to perform better at work, what does better mean? But if you say, if you're a teacher, my math students in Form 3 to achieve X percentage improvement in their exam results, or even more specific, a particular area that they might be struggling with, the more you hone in, the more you use that microscope and find the exact problem, the better is the chance of you being successful. And it's another thing to ask yourself, why is it important? What change will this make in your, and I've just seen, I've repeated that question in the slide, so I'll change that before you download it. Why is it important? What change would this make if you achieve it? I think that is the question to ask yourself, is how will it change your life or the life of others? And, what are the things that could prevent the achievement of this goal? Because it's always good, like a lawyer, to look at what would be the counter arguments. And it's not as if you just see the darkness, but it's a very important thing for you to say. It will help you to see whether it's really realistic, whether it's really achievable by looking at what could potentially go wrong. So what I'd like you to do is just to, before we move forward at all, is just to stop this video and just write down any specific thing that you want to achieve this year and see if you can answer these questions. What is it? Why is it important? What will change as a result of this if you achieve this? And what potentially could prevent the achievement of this goal? So just pause the video and just write it down, because I really believe we should always write things down. And it would actually be a good idea if you get yourself like a little notebook in which you do all your work for these courses that I'm sharing with you. Okay, so I hope you've written down your what you want to achieve. Now, here is an example, right? If you want to improve the quality and frequency of your classroom discussions, or that could be your departmental discussions with your team, you should set a goal to achieve or to hold those discussions every week. Because if you don't think about a time frame and you don't make it measurable, then it's not going to be achieved. And you must ask yourself, will these discussions be important? What will be the difference if you manage to hold these discussions with your team every week or every 2 weeks, or in the morning before school, or during just after lunch break? So the more you define it, the better. But it's also important that you don't fix it so that it's so absolutely in stone. So say, for example, if you said, I will hold these discussions at 7:15 every morning. I mean, life doesn't work like that, right? Things happen. So if you said 7:15 and 3 days in a row you were in a traffic jam, or things happened, or you had to stay home because of coronavirus, then you are going to feel that you haven't achieved that specific goal. So be very careful about how you set those parameters. Define them, but don't make them that you are in a straitjacket and you feel that these goals are really ruining your life. So, if we look at this goal and we analyze it, by the end of the first term, that would make it time bound. I will have reached out to a minimum of 10 parents by calling or emailing to get them involved with their student and the class. So if you say, let's look at all the different elements. So is it specific? Yes, because I will have reached out to parents, right? And what will I have done? I will have called or emailed them to get them involved. Is it attainable? Well, that's what you have to decide. I think it's attainable to at least have reached out to 10 parents by the end of the term. I mean, I would maybe have increased that, but I'm just giving an example. I've also said it's relevant because it's important to get parents engaged in student life, and it is attainable, it is achievable, it is possible to do it. And the measurable side of it is I've reached out to a minimum of 10 parents. So if somebody needs to have that coaching conversation with me, or I have to present the evidence, I can show 10 emails, or I can show recordings of or logging of 10 conversations that I've had with parents. Now, to get back to that, we say it's a SMART goal has elements, but it's not necessarily a set of rules that you have to, for example, have a sentence for each of those elements. Sometimes you'll find that by saying one thing, you've actually covered 3 things. So, you might say that I've spoken to parents to get them involved in like we've done in the previous slide, reached out to parents by calling or emailing them to get them involved. It actually covers a few things. It doesn't mean that in your SMART goal you need a sentence for each of those elements, but it could be implied. It could be clear that it is there, or it could be a phrase that actually covers more than one element of it, right? So If you want to set a goal for yourself for more than 1 year, you can also have a goal, a long-term goal. So, how you define time bound needs to be practical, because you can't necessarily see into the future. So you could then make it a little bit more open to say, by the end of 2022, but not necessarily on 15 November 2022 at 4 o'clock, So you do define when it should be ready, but you don't put it so in such a specific frame. Although, if you want to set a short-term target, the shorter-term targets need to be more precise. So it could be my target for this week, okay, could maybe still be a little bit flexible, but my target for today needs to be really more specific, right? So by, I can say by the end of the day, I want to have achieved all of this. But if I say by 12 o'clock, I need to have done this, it maybe puts a bit more pressure on yourself. And of course, it all depends on your own calendar and how realistic those time parameters are. But that should always be your goal. And you should also encourage students or your members of your department to set the goals, because by teaching others, by teaching students, by teaching your children, by teaching your staff in your organization to set goals, it has been proven that it improves their success, their output, their academic success. And there's actually some research that has been shown, that has been done on target setting, smart target setting, and student achievement. And there is a significant difference in those classes, in those students who have set and effective time smart goals for themselves. So, if you look at the first S and we say to ourselves, specific. What does specific mean? Well, a rule of thumb, if you can use your W questions, who, what, where, when, which, why, that helps you to make it more specific. And I know that if we say why are you doing it, also actually covers the relevance, but it's always good to, when you are thinking about something specific, really define it. Who is doing it, what will be involved, or which aspect of it are you covering, or what will you be doing? So ask yourself those questions, because when you reach that objective, that milestone, and you were specific, then you will know that you have achieved that part of your goal. So specificity is really an important thing, and the more you could hone down on exactly what it is, the better. I mean, it's like that in life. There's a beautiful poem, and it's called Be Specific, and the poet says, don't call it an owl, call it an oriole, call it by its name, because the more specific you are, the more you can give it identity, the better it will, the more real, the more meaningful it becomes to you. So that's the challenge. Can you make that, whatever it is, more specific? Can you dig even deeper? Does it have a name? Does it have a specific space or place, or a code word, or specific jargon, or something really specific? So just think of going inside and honing in on that specific element. All right, so now let's look at measurable. What does that mean? Measurable goals have amounts, numbers, whether it's time or other units, anything through which you can measure it. And I always ask myself when I set a goal, how can I present evidence that I have done it? Right? So I want to be better. Well, how do you define that? I want to have a better sleeping pattern. Okay, so I define it by I want to sleep at least 8 hours a day, because then I can say it's better. Or I want to go to bed by no later than 12 o'clock. That's measurable. But to say I want to sleep better, I want to have a better sleeping pattern, it's not enough, because you won't know whether you're successful. Now, take a bit of time and think a little bit about goals that you have set and whether those goals have a measurability in it. Because, yes, we want to have better habits, we want to have better attributes, and those attributes are measured in terms of actions. So think about that, and if you could ask yourself how much or how many or how fast or by yeah, I think those 3 questions are actually quite good. That will help you to determine whether you are going in the right direction. Is your goal attainable or achievable? Is another word you could use here. Well, it's wonderful to say that I want to lose 20 kilograms by the end of the month. It sounds measurable, it is specific, but it's not achievable. It's not attainable. So if you set that goal for yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. Sometimes in schools, I've seen them set targets like we want the average to improve by 30%. I mean, to improve an average by 30% or a GPA by a very, very big margin it's not possible. So unless, no, don't even say if a miracle will happen. No. So, be very, very sure that it's possible to complete, because else it would really derail the whole process and people just get discouraged. And if you lose belief in yourself that you can achieve it, then it's not going to happen. So, in a class, if a child is failing mathematics, break it down into the elements of the work that the child does not necessarily understand. So instead of saying, okay, you're going to improve your grade from a F to a B or a C or even a passing grade, make it even better by saying, I'm going to improve X, Y, and Z. Define it. I will be able to use this effectively. I will be able to explain this. I will be able to, by the end of this time, I will be able to, then, it makes it easier. A child easily gets discouraged. So if you make it more achievable, that's really good. And it's also important to not just make it too easy. Set it a little bit outside of what is an easy goal to achieve. So we always have to be challenged. And Vygotsky, a very famous educational psychologist, talked about the zone of proximal learning. And that happens outside of where your skills currently are, and with the aim or the goal of or the support of other people. That's where your real growth happens, right? So you don't grow if you just learn to do something, or you just do something that you already know that you can do. Yeah, I suppose you can achieve your goal, but there's no sense of satisfaction or accomplishment. So that is attainable or achievable. We spoke about measurable. Is your goal measurable? So if we go back to sorry, we've already covered that. Let's go on. So we have attainable, then we have to ask ourselves, is our goal relevant? Now, you can have all of these things. It could be specific, it could be measurable, it could be attainable. But is it important? What change is it going to make to you, to others, to your organization, to your school, to whatever the focus of this goal is? Is it really going to create more success in your organization, raise productivity, improve student outcomes? You really have to ask yourself why and how will it change the situation. Here's an example. I worked in a school in Malaysia, and they had, believe it or not, the annual toilet competition. And in one school, in Johor, the principal was really set on winning this competition every year. So that visitor's toilet looked like the Taj Mahal. It was beautiful, marble, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And she won the competition, but so what? I mean, how does this impact on student learning? How does it impact on staff motivation? Because they weren't allowed to use the toilets. It was locked and she kept the key. So, yes, you can achieve it. It's measurable. I won the competition and it's specific. I made the toilet look beautiful. But, what relevance does this have beyond that? So I guess this to me is the most important question of them all. And the last one that we have covered already, but we will just talk about this again, is that, there has to be a timeline, a deadline. You need a target date. You need to know by when it should be done. If it's not there, then, yes, you could have all the elements, but you're never going to achieve it because you won't know what you are working towards. You cannot break down that target into smaller milestones. So that doesn't make any sense. There's no doubt about the efficiency of a SMART target. It is about the implementation and the practice and embedding it in your everyday life. So I've given you a few templates that you can use. There's a SMART goals worksheet with some leading questions that can help you to define your SMART goal. And there's another one that you can ask yourself, okay, so I've set this. But can I make my goal even more specific? Do I have tools that I can use to measure the achievement of the goal? So, for example, if you're a school principal and you're looking at the staff's ability to use technology in their classrooms, how will you measure it? Do you have a rubric? Are you going to observe their lessons? And how is there a checklist? Is there specific standards that have been communicated to them? And also ask yourself, do you have the right resources? It's no use saying, I want all my teachers to be able to use Google spreadsheets or Google Sheets, but lots of them don't have computers, or you don't have electricity in your school, as in some schools. Or you want to develop, want to have robotics as a extramural activity because you want to promote innovation and technology in your school, but you don't have robotic sets. So, or you don't have staff. You might have the sets, but you don't have staff available who can teach and guide the students. So ask yourself these questions. What will the impact be? So again, how does it link to your broader improvement plan for your organization, for your school? Does it fit in? Is it part of the same direction, or is this going in a completely different direction? So that's also very important. And then once you have it, do you have an action plan? Because a goal is a goal, but a goal without action is just a dream. So you have to break it down into smaller, achievable, shorter term targets that can help you towards on this journey towards achieving your goal. Yes, that is the resources I've shared with you in this session. It's very short. It's just a quick reminder of a SMART goal, and I would love for you to go through this process. And if you click on the resource link, you can download these resources. And also, this is getting this PowerPoint or this presentation is for members of our professional learning community only. So if you want to join the community, just email me or use the small link that you were sent. If you are here today, you will have received that link. And you can also always contact me at almarie@alpotconsulting.com if you want to get into I will share some more links on the Instagram page and on the Facebook page. Thank you for spending your time with me today.